With the recent start of Season 4 of Outlast trials, we now have our hands on a considerable catalogue of trials and programs for these poor reagents to survive. And since we haven't looked at these programs or MK challenges since the start of Season 1, I thought it would be a good time to update the list. So we'll be breaking down what lessons Murkoff intends to teach the reagents with each and every one of their trials within the Sinyala Facility. Remembering that these trials are about teaching these reagents vital things in order for them to be of use to Murkoff and the CIA out in the field. So without further ado, let's see what Murkoff has in store. If you were expecting an Uber to your destination, you will be very disappointed. You do, however, get the Murkoff VIP experience, so allow me to be your host. Please choose from any of the 4 specialized seats here for your journey. Because your safety is so important to us, we have automatic seatbelts for your convenience, except it's for your ankles, wrist and neck. Don't mind how uncomfortable it is. As a luxury service, we also provide onboard entertainment during your journey here today in the form of propaganda and brainwashing material from our very own lunatic Dr. Easterman. To help enhance the experience, we have provided inbuilt hallucinogenic gases that will help give you that real 4D experience, so you can actually imagine the horrors with your own eyes before you actually experience them for real in 5 minutes time. I hope you enjoyed tripping balls with us here at Murkoff today. Please consider giving us a 5-star rating, preferably before you enter your trial, since this will very likely result in your premature death and you won't be able to do it afterwards. I also accept tips. Thank you. The very first stop on this tour bus from hell is the police station. The program in question is Kill the Snitch, and Murkoff has carefully built this elaborate set to really drive home the experience. Just imagine walking through the Star Wars immersive experience at Disneyland, except the Ewoks are actually trying to kill you, and the bodies of previous visitors are just sort of scattered around the set to remind you just how screwed you actually are. That's what these reagents are dealing with here. We can see the prime asset of this particular trial on the television. Leland Coyle gives the Snitch a little encouragement and pep talk with his cattle prod, while we make our way through to the security room. Coyle controls his station with an iron hand, and gives us a little demonstration of what happens if you don't obey his laws. He leaves and gives us a chance to meet up with the Snitch. The objective for us is to wheel the Snitch to the electrocution chamber, but Coyle has seemingly turned off the power, causing the backup generators to start up. We will need to turn the main power back on if we want to get the Snitch to the end of his Murkoff experience. We head downstairs, avoiding Coyle at all costs and refilling the generator with some gasoline. A few sporadic button presses later and we have ourselves a slightly less dim experience. We return to the Snitch and learn that we will need to find keys to unlock 3 doors throughout the station. The keys in question are found within random dead bodies, with symbols painted onto them. The symbol on the television near the door correlates with the correct body. Within the trials, reagents will obviously need to avoid the prime assets that are searching throughout, but there are also these pesky X-population that are scattered throughout that can also crush the aspiring reagent's dream of one day being a sleeper agent for the CIA. It's definitely not work for the squeamish, but when your life is on the line, you do what needs to be done. After collecting the keys throughout, the next step is opening the 3 doors and wheeling the Snitch all the way through to the end. We can see just how sick Murkoff is. As you begin the electrocution process, there are other reagents getting front row seats to the show. They really don't miss an opportunity to brainwash people, do they? After killing the Snitch, we have completed the objective that Murkoff has sent us to learn. We must silence false witnesses. They should not be allowed to spread their false truths. Now that we've completed the trial, that must mean that we're done and can get off this homicidal ride, right? No, of course not. We head straight into the next experience. This is a tour, remember. We now get the many experiences that the police station set has to offer, starting with the Cancel the Autopsy trial. We have a very unlucky individual here hanging above a meat grinder. Our job is simple. Collect the 3 keys hidden within the different sectors and use them to not only start the meat grinder, but to send this poor guy on a pretty extreme massage. Much like we learned in the main trial, we need to correlate the bodies with the symbols found on the televisions. After our messed up Easter egg hunt, we do exactly what is required of us and return to our VIP service with a new lesson learnt. Corpses offer forensic facts incompatible with Murkoff's truth. We need to grind those bodies into something factually correct. Next stop is the Sabotage The Lockdown. It is extremely simple and requires us to find a generator found somewhere within the lower facilities of the station and use a fuel canister to refuel and restart the generator responsible for our exit from this nightmare. I feel like Murkoff got a little lazy with this particular experience. Maybe Easterman ran out of ideas, but it does teach us what we needed to know. If you can open doors, no prison can hold you. Eliminate the past returns us to the meat grinder, but instead of bodies, we now need to dispose of evidence and history of not only our previous life, but the previous life of other reagents. Scattered throughout are boxes of documents, and we need to grind as many as we can within the allotted time limit, all while being chased by good old Leland Coyle. Once the time's run out, it's time to make a quick escape with yet another lesson learnt. Destroy as many historical records as you can. The more we eradicate, the less they punish. Release the Prisoners is a simple hostage setup. Somewhere within the police station are a group of prisoners that are being held, and it is our job to free these upstanding citizens from the corrupt law of Coil. What makes this endeavour even worse is the fact that all the lights have been turned off, so our night vision goggles are going to be our best friend for this one. We reach the security room and release the prisoners, and actually, maybe they aren't the upstanding citizens that I said they were, but they are the exact type of people that Murkoff like. We're able to leave now and understand that only Murkoff arbitrates justice. We must free convicts that have been falsely imprisoned for their conspicuous guilt. Unfortunately, we have almost come to the end of our police station tour, but don't worry, we have a lot more in store. We begin the Teach the Police Officer trial. This requires us to find the auditorium within the station that is teaching these rookie cops some questionable things. I mean, look, he seems to be loving it. But we do know better. It's time to find something a little more suitable to be teaching these up-and-comers. We can find numerous keys that will open various doors throughout the station, but ultimately we are trying to find a new film reel. Murkoff really pulled out their entire budget for this one. They have cameras and movement sensors and everything. I'm impressed. Once we change the film over, Coyle was less than pleased, but we make our way out and realize that defining laws create crime. So by replacing precinct training films with Murkoff reels, we can make future crimes our own. This rounds out our lessons learned for the police station program, and is only the beginning of what Murkoff requires of their reagents. It's time to head into the next stop of our tour. I present to you the orphanage. This particular location is one of 3 locations that house Mother Gooseberry and her less than friendly hand puppet Dr. Futman. As you could probably imagine, this orphanage is pretty messed up, and let's just say that these children mannequins are really enjoying that flour, sugar, cocaine? But that's okay, we're here to teach these miscreants how to behave. Murkoff style. We need to tune some radio receivers in the boys and girls dormitories. This will allow us to gain access to the main lobby and continue our way throughout the facility. See, unfortunately, these movies being shown to the children here at the orphanage are not so appropriate for mannequins under the height of 4 foot tall. Mother Gooseberry is playing her very own film titled Take a Whiff on Me, teaching these mannequins just how great booger sugar really is. However, we have come to the rescue and interrupt this programming with some good old-fashioned Murkoff propaganda, much more age-appropriate. We return to the reception desk and need to head towards the chapel for mass. It really does seem like everyone is having a great old time. There's dancing, music, communion. You really can't ask for anything better. Well, I have some ideas. Oh god. Yeah, no, not what I had in mind. Things are about to get a hell of a lot more violent. We now need to find ourselves 2 saw handles and restart the generator to allow us to, begin the feast. Much like what we saw in the police station, we need keys, and we know that keys are found within bodies, and generators need gasoline. You know, the standard stuff at this point. We return and turn on the power and get to work. This really isn't for the squeamish. Blood begins pouring over our churchgoers as they take turns enjoying the fruits of our labour. We can now head to the exit while avoiding Mother Gooseberry, remembering that education establishes obedience, and faith makes it manifest. By teaching the children and giving them First Communion, we make them ours. I'm sure that after your recent experience, you may be feeling a little peckish perhaps. We do have onboard meals with our VIP travel service. No? Okay, suit yourself. Remember the 5-star rating offering though, okay? Again, I accept tips. It's time to feed the children, since just because you aren't hungry doesn't mean they aren't. We make our way to the cafeteria and find our mannequins ready and waiting for their Sunday dinner. And we're going to prepare what every growing mannequin needs. Flesh and bleach. You know what, I think I also lost my appetite. Found around the grounds are giant bottles of bleach that we need to retrieve and return to the cooking pot. Once all have been collected and returned, the soup of the day will be served and the mannequins will celebrate and dig in. Mother Gooseberry isn't a fan of our menu choices, and we need to get the hell out of there. But we do know that a healthy body makes for a healthy mind. I'm not sure human flesh and bleach is the appropriate dish to prove that point, quite the opposite in fact, but hey, it's Murkoff. We return back to the main lobby of the orphanage for our next trial. Foster the orphans. See, these guys here need to escape, and it's our job to set the frequencies throughout to open up the gates and allow them to leave. Again, not the most inventive choice by Murkoff. It's all really quite simple, but once we do get the mannequins out and help them find their way to their new foster home, we leave knowing that mothers are poison, toxic swamps in which families suffer and drown. You know what, I think our tutor Dr. Easterman might be projecting a little with this particular lesson, but let's continue. Reunite the Family seems a little hypocritical considering our previous lesson, but we take our mannequin friend here and reunite him with his family outside. This will require a mixture of keys, generators, and even disabling particular power circuits to gain access to the gate controls. Once opened, we return, it's that kind of return. Oh, they were dead. Well, the nuclear family is the societal ideal, so by releasing the orphan from the shackles of the state, we reunite him with his mother and father. It's a bit of a buzzkill, that one, but we still have one more orphanage lesson to learn. Gather the children of God. This one involves a church van with free candy written on the outside of it. Of course it does. We need to deliver the orphan mannequins to this van, freeing them from Mother Gooseberry. They can be found in different corners of the orphanage, and what is worse is the fact that they don't really want to leave, since Murkoff equipped these damn mannequins with voice boxes that scream all the time, making them a Gooseberry magnet, and even shutting gates that react to sound. If you can work around these glaring issues and return all 4 of these children to the van, we can leave. Now understanding that too much mother love makes a weak child. By gathering the children and bringing them to a priest, they can have a more strenuous education. Easterman really does have some mother issues, doesn't he? This wraps up the lessons learnt in the orphanage program. Now on to another of Gooseberry's programs. The fun has just begun with Grind the Bad Apples, as we now arrive at Futterland. Mother Gooseberry gives us a great demonstration with what Dr. Futterman's drill can actually do and welcomes us to the party. Also, did I mention, Gooseberry's drill is able to completely rip off the faces of her victims, even leaving some of these faces on people around the park. Of course, this amusement park from hell is entirely dental themed due to Phyllis's history with her father and working in the dental business, but our first objective is reaching the root canal ride. This will require us to play some carnival games to unlock access. How do you play these games, you might ask? Well, by throwing human hearts at them, of course. So load up on your ammunition and let's get throwing. The games are random for each reagent lucky enough to play, but for us, we get Feed the Clowns, Alien Invader, and Duck and Cover games. Nice. We return our 3 tickets and get a glimpse of Gooseberry's fun room, filled with faces, flesh, and, well, every piece of gore you could probably really imagine. We need to punish these child mannequins once again who are taking turns drilling holes into this poor ex-reagent that didn't quite learn his lesson here when he was at the trials. To do this, we need to push the cart all the way to the end of the canal ride, but obstacles are in our way, which will make things a little more challenging. So we'll need to power off the barriers, finding the switches, and slowly making our way through. Did I mention there are flamethrowers? Everything a good amusement park needs for that extra thrill. Once we reach the higher level, we will require more water to get this bad boy floating again. So we'll need to follow numerous pipes that lead to valves. Wrong valve and you'll get some hallucinogenic gas to the face. If you get it correct, then we're one step closer to getting the water levels fixed. At the end of the ride, we now need to push the cart and mannequins into these meat grinder teeth, showing them that using the drills on corpses is not okay, despite what Mother Gooseberry might tell you. After reaching the exit, we remind ourselves that we are an adult. The youth will not obey our orders and must be corrected. We must punish them accordingly. And if you think that is our only lesson in punishment, you would be wrong, my friends, since our very next trial is Punish the Miscreants. The meat grinder returns once again as 4 mannequins are scattered throughout the fun park. We must find them, put them down, and bring them back to the grinder for a quick lesson in humility. It's all pretty straightforward really, but our lesson here is that naughty children can only learn obedience through punishment. Teach the children how to behave. This might be a hot take, but I feel the Murkoff should maybe review their education curriculum for reagents. Just saying, it feels like there is some overlap here in lessons. Open the gates as a simple run and escape and avoid numerous dangers scattered around the fun park. See, Mother Gooseberry has locked the gates that will allow you access to the next area of the park, and if you want to open these gates to the exit, you will need to find switches and disable them. Again, a pretty simple task. I feel like we need something a little more, you know? We're becoming a pretty well experienced reagent at this stage, and I just think I need some more danger in my life. After opening all the gates and reaching the end, we'll find out that you cannot let power imprison you. I see what you did there, Murkoff, with the power pun. Nice. It's time to deface the Futmans, which puts our throwing arm to the test once again. Murkoff has hidden little Dr. Futman cutouts around the fun park, and we need to find each one of them and throw a human heart at them. These little buggers are everywhere, and easily missed, but we will need all of them if we want to escape since the gates don't open without them. Aside from becoming the next biggest prospect in baseball, what else could we have possibly learned from this? Well, childhood memories are the stagnation that impede your growth. Put away the childish things that scatter your mind. Damn, that one was deeper than I expected. Well, on to the next. Drill the Futman puts us back in the root canal. this time with a reagent dressed up as Dr. Futman himself. We need to kill Dr. Futman in Gooseberry's office. There really isn't anything to it. Just find him in the office and press the button, forcing a drill down into his spine. I guess we don't like mascots here at Murkoff. To be honest, I thought he could have stayed, maybe give him a sign or something, wave it around, but when your time at the company is up, it's up. Job security's brutal at the moment, man. That's not actually the lesson, even though it probably should be. The lesson here was we are a consumer, not the product. If you allow them to turn us into toys, then you deserve to be played with. That particular lesson is a bad day for all mascots everywhere, but we move on to the final trial of the fun park. We must redeem your freedom, which will require us to collect a crap ton of tickets throughout the cavity-infested root canal, 10 to be exact, and they are hidden throughout the canals themselves in the upstairs offices. It's an Easter egg hunt really, filled with pitfalls and angry drill mothers, but once you collect your 10 tickets and cash them in, your prize is freedom. Well, not really. You just get to leave this particular trial, but your tour is still far from over yet. This teaches us that currency, like your survival, is worthless unless you give it value with faith. With that, we have our list of lessons that we've learnt within the Fun Park program. We begin our next program, this time with the Courthouse, Vindicate the Guilty. It puts us back into the trustworthy hands of Leland Coyle, as Murkoff really has upped their game with their set design. Look at the scale of this thing. Inside, we can find Coyle, who once again dispenses his justice on the previous reagent. Almost seems like a trademark for him at this point. Inside the courtroom, we have a trial within a trial taking place, as numerous mannequins are being set up as lawyers, accused, and even the jury. The twist, however, is that the judge is actually our target, and we need to find the evidence being used in the case, and destroy it. The evidence in question are human heads found within puzzle boxes that require a 4-digit code that can be found written on the walls. Once you collect the head, we can take it to a fountain in the middle of the courthouse, give them a little wash with some acid, cleaning up the evidence and doing our accused friend a favour. Once all the heads have been disposed of, we can return to the courthouse, and Coyle is less than pleased about this new development. We now need to kill the witnesses to really put this case to rest. The witnesses have devices on their heads that react to high frequencies. Luckily, we are provided with such devices by Murkoff, as well as a tracker to help find these witnesses that are scattered throughout the courthouse. I'm going to be honest, this particular task makes me want to claw my eyes out. You have to kill numerous witnesses, and each one of them requires being found 3 times and have this device used on them 3 times. Not my favourite time, I'll be honest. After silencing the witnesses, we head back to the courthouse and can now start up the power and dispense justice. I'll be honest, it's a bad death. Like, really, really bad. But once we finish, we head towards the exit, learning the lesson that we cannot allow our innocent institutions to be persecuted for their clear guilt. By sabotaging the proceedings and silencing the witnesses, we revoke the authority of the judge. Now, while this might seem redundant, our next trial requires us to escape the courthouse. Kinda did that already there, Murkoff, but I guess we'll do it again. We once again get our device to teach some witnesses some lessons, hunting them down in the dark and giving them a mild headache. The point is to kill to survive, and gates throughout the courthouse will only open when enough blood has been spilled. Once all the witnesses have been disposed of, we can make our exit for the second time. Civilization is founded on the suffering of the weak. Don't let the pain of our victims restrict your liberty. Kill them, free them from their suffering and us of our bondage. Our next job is destroy the evidence. We need our trusty acid once again, but instead of heads, this time we get the entire body. I think Jesse Pinkman would be really proud of us for this one. We need 3 buckets of acid to completely dissolve the evidence, and once the tub is filled, we've done our job. This teaches us that if there is no evidence, there is no crime. By destroying the proof of our crimes, we did nothing wrong. We head back to the cells for Fuel the Release. Murkoff continues their streak of pure ingenuity and imagination as we need to turn on 3 generators throughout the courthouse, turning on the lights and opening the gates to the exit. Not really much more to say on that one. Justice, like civilization, requires power, and power requires fuel. Law is only the word of man, and facts the mere happenstance of existence. We must now tilt the scales of justice. Within the courthouse is a monument of Lady Justice herself, and we must use human heads to level the scales of justice, giving us our freedom. The heads are once again found in puzzle boxes, scattered throughout the courthouse. We must figure out the puzzles and return the 3 heads, allowing us to leave and learn the lesson that we are the defense. The guilty cannot be allowed to face justice in opposition to Murkoff's profit and influence. Our final job in the courthouse program is to sentence the prosecuted. We must find symbols drawn throughout the courthouse. These give us different codes that we can input for the craziest and most realistic game of hangman I think I've ever seen. 5-letter word with you in the middle. Any guesses? Put them in the comments down below to see if you're right. I must say Murkoff does one hell of a job hiding these damn symbols. But once we collect all the codes, we do get our final word: abuse. The real loser of this entire game is our hangman friend here that ends up in the meat grinder, but he died for our freedom. We can now exit the trial after being victorious over the Courthouse program. They call it a sentence, but a few choice words can condemn a human to death. We must spell out the story that confirms the guilt of the condemned, finishing up all the lessons that we have learned in the Courthouse trials. We now get to our final Mother Gooseberry program here on our tour of Murkoff. Pervert the Futmans shows us Dr. Futman in all his glory on the television. We head inside this duck-themed toy factory and find a guy locked inside the garbage compactor. Not a good place to find yourself trapped, my friend. His name is Oscar, being a nod to Oscar the Grouch, and he is unsure just how long he's been in this situation, if it's been hours or maybe even days. The fact that you don't know would probably suggest to me that it's been a few hours, because I sure as hell would know if I'd been stuck in a garbage compactor for days. We are not heroes in this story, as we need to find selected boxes of toys to fill the compactor with, activating it and turning Oscar here into part of the packaging. We can continue on to the production line where a guy has been strung up and is now our doll to be assembled. I'm not kidding. We need to find specific labeled boxes for each of the production lines in order to continue the manufacturing. But to begin, it only requires a key. The first step essentially covers this poor SOB in hot wax. Oof, looks like that's going to sting a little. Repeating the steps with keys and boxes, allowing us through the second step, putting erotic novelties onto them. Something Mother Gooseberry loves to do with a lot of the mannequins around the factory. Unfortunately for this guy, however, he's flesh and blood, and the final step is giving him lubricant. Oh, holy hell. I think it's time that we put this guy out of his misery, and we send him down towards the incinerator in what is honestly a mercy killing at this point. It requires fixing the valves and manually pumping the fire just to pour salt into the wound. Once we dispose of our doll, we can leave, learning that we cannot allow secret messages and innuendo to brainwash our children, expose, humiliate, and destroy the deviants. We now get into the smaller trials within the Toy Factory program, such as Crush the Sex Toys. In memory of Oscar, we will use the compactor once again, needing to find specific boxes within the storages and crushing them in spite of Mother Gooseberry. We will need to use UV lights in order to actually see the numbers, but the job is relatively simple, and we crush our boxes and leave, learning that discreet packaging hides dangerous perversion. We must see the path to enlightenment. The next trial is essentially the same thing, but with slightly different steps. This time we need to incinerate the sex toys, but instead of boxes, we have a whole cart that needs to be pushed into the incinerator. Doors throughout are locked and we will require keys, but we can get these bad boys burning in no time at all. I feel like we're becoming a real professional at this. Perversion on an industrial scale ferments widespread corruption and disobedience. We must burn the sickness. To be honest, a factory like this shouldn't be operating, and shut down the factory is our next trial. This will require us to search throughout the factory for fuse boxes that correspond with different sections of the factory line, allowing us to shut it down one room at a time. Again, it's a pretty short-lived and simplistic trial that teaches us that workers are capital itself, products bought and engaged to create more easily sellable products. Murkoff should control the means of this production. The final trial of the toy factory requires us to fumigate the factory. We must release toxic gas into the entire factory, making it unusable. Unfortunately, there are 3 people within what is essentially a gas chamber, and their day is only going to get worse if I'm being honest. Inside are numerous coloured pipes that are coated with a letter and number. We need to find each of these valves, turning on the pressure and allowing the gas to flow freely throughout the area. Once we complete the job, we will, complete what is only described as a war crime and kill the 3 people inside the incinerator, teaching us that aging workers with their pensions and benefits are the bleeding wounds of our economy, draining the corporate body with their chronic existence. We are the happy accident, the unnoticed leak that invites invisible death. Wow, that might be one of the most messed up lessons so far, but that completes our lessons learnt for the Toy Factory program. We now get to jump in with a new prime asset. Welcome to the docks for the Poison the Medicine trial. This one is controlled by Franco Barbie, with numerous nods towards his family, such as Salvatore Cargo, named after his father, and the boat Angelina, named after his stepmother. We can find this sick individual upstairs as he is, breastfeeding himself from one of the dead ex-pops. Unlike Coil or Gooseberry, he has a shotgun and he puts that thing to very good use. We need to enter the drug laboratory and begin our production of drugs. We are going full Breaking Bad with this one. It involves us finding 5 slabs of drugs and filling the cooker. But to find all of these slabs, we will need to wheel our cart all the way over to Franco's train depot. Franco believes that the baby needs its medicine, and to collect this so-called medicine, we will once again need to get our codes from hidden symbols throughout the train depot, unlocking our puzzle drug cases. We collect our 3 slabs and can spot old Franco watching in disgust from above on our way back. We place them all into the cooker, and we need to add one secret ingredient to this batch: poison. We're adding poison to it. If there was any way to make drugs somehow more illegal, that would certainly be the way to do it. Now, we will need 3 canisters in total, and they can be found over in the Chemco section of the docks, filled with poisonous gases that, if you stay long enough within them, can absolutely 100% kill you. But if you just stay in there a little while, it only gives you a little buzz, it seems. After all the hallucinogenic gases that we've been subject to thus far, I think that we can handle a little poisonous gas. I would, however, hate to see the level of brain damage that we will be subject to when this entire process is done. We add all the poison and get our mannequin workforce here to cut and process the poison drugs. We take our product to the Angelina boat and get to see Franco once again in all his glory, upset that we are messing with his whole industry. Now, how are we going to hide our product, you might ask? Well, we're going to hide these bad boys inside of living people, and swallowing them is overrated, so we're going to be placing them there by hand. After successfully smuggling our product, we may leave the trial now with the understanding that in a godless world, opiates will be the religion of the masses. By taking control of drug production, we can kill with the nonchalance of a god. Our next job is to empty the vault. Who doesn't love a good old bank heist? Franco himself has a whole casino here on the shoreline, and it's our job to find the symbols once again and unlock the vault for ourselves. Once the vault is open, we can return it to our mannequin friend on the boat, completing our heist and allowing us to leave, learning that casinos are the temple of idiot waste and willful failure. You must steal from those who would steal from you. I think Murkoff is going to have to give me a notebook or something at this stage. There's so many lessons and we still have much more to go. I hope you've been enjoying the video so far, and if you have, put M+ student in the comments down below so I know that you did. It's time to poison the cattle, and what they mean by cattle is kind of in a semi-literal sense. Franco is one sick puppy, man. Once again, I think we're doing these X-Pops a favor, but we need to empty the poison cans into the feeder machine. Oh god. We get the job done, and Franco is understandably upset now that his favourite food supply has been disrupted, but we manage to get away nonetheless. The milk of human kindness must be contaminated with liberty and progress. It is our duty to force the nipple of benevolence between the clenched teeth of ingratitude. It's time for some more smuggling and stash the contraband, requiring us to hide the drugs and, well, you guessed it, people. But at least this time they're dead, right? It's slightly better. It does, however, seem that they are inside barrels of acid, so doing this without a glove seems like a really bad idea, but here in the trials you can't really be picky. What's a chemical burn here and there? Once done, we can return to the shuttle for our final docs lesson, but we know that economies based on narcotics crumble with their primary market. I feel that pretty much applies to almost any kind of economy, but I do appreciate the finance lesson here with Easterman nonetheless. Time to cook the informant. We get to chase ourselves a witness with our high-frequency device again, which is really not my favourite school assignment, but you don't always get what you want, I suppose. Cooking the informant will teach us that nobody can restrict interrogation by torture. Any manner of death is mercy. And that will conclude our lesson on the Docs program class. Now I want everybody to head out for lunch and return in about 3 seconds for our new class on the Downtown program. Welcome back. Still a few more lessons to learn, but not too much left to go. Let's see what your final grade is. We head downtown for the Pleasure of the Prosecutor trial. It's always good to go on a field trip, this time to the theatre. But of course our access is blocked and we'll need to get our ticket for admission. To do this, we need to find rooms around the town that have power switches. Every so often these switches deactivate and we need to find which one fails and turn them back on, waiting long enough for it to reach 100%. During this time we'll be chased, stabbed and punched by X-Pop individuals that just want to make our job as hard as possible. We return with our ticket and can find Franco watching a pretty wild show with this prosecutor and a few mannequins. Our job is to dispose of these questionable mannequins and change them with alternative sadist mannequins instead, much more up Murkoff's alley. It's simple really. We need to repeat the switch trick, fixing any that deactivate within the timer, and our reward will be one of the 4 mannequins that we're looking for. Once we have all 4 and have returned, we will enjoy a classic memory game, matching the colours with the ones shown to us in the order. As you could probably imagine, not so fun for the prosecutor. Once we're done, we can leave now understanding that he who controls what justice desires defines the contours of law. You give pleasure when lust is the lubricant of power. You give pain when violence is the fountainhead of control. We return downtown to kidnap the mistress. This one has quite a few steps. Inside the control room within the local police station are 4 televisions. Each represents a different descriptor for the mannequin found somewhere within the town, the body's gender, the room it's found in, and the weapon the mannequin is holding. To find these clues, we will need to find frequencies on machines found throughout the sewers, which will reveal these things to us. Once you collect all the clues, you can then identify and extract the specific prostitute mannequin, completing the trial. Prostitutes receive more honest confessions than priests. Identify your target by his tastes and deliver her for interrogation. Spread the disease could quite possibly be the grossest lesson yet. We need to collect bottles of concentrated STDs. Yes, you heard that right. What are they for, you may well, oh god. There are a lot of bad ways to go in these trials, but honestly, this one is something else. So gross. We need to do our switch puzzle once again and collect the 4 bottles. Once retrieved, this poor dude is not only given a bath in this stuff, but is also injected constantly with it. This is a show that I never want to see again in my lifetime. Sexually transmitted diseases are the secret handshake of evolutionary judgment and divine retribution. And that is the lessons that we currently have for the downtown program. Let's move on to the suburbs. Liquidate the Union shows us a whole new look at the community of Franco Barbie. Signs and protests galore as people are not happy with the current state of affairs. We will need to reach Town Hall to see exactly what's going on. Inside, we have our politician giving a speech while Franco is protecting the union boss that is essentially screwing over the everyday residents of this community. We need to find this union boss, which will require us doing some frequency puzzles to open nearby gates. I think I've mentioned this a few times, but the scale that Murkoff is going to create these realistic environments is honestly admirable. Inside the mansion, we need to retrieve the union boss from inside the closet of this bedroom. This will require us to find a secret code that is scattered one number at a time around the different rooms of the mansion. Once we input the code, we can send our boss here on his final journey to the factory. We'll need to stop a few times in some of the neighborhoods, doing more puzzles to unlock the gates, but eventually we do arrive. This tube device will essentially be filled with, blood and parts, which we'll be drowning this poor union boss in. Ugh. The television shows part of the human anatomy, and we must correlate that with a specific type of safety equipment for that particular part. Once hit, the symbols will swap locations, and we need to hit the correct safety equipment 3 times to send a body into the blender. Once you've done it enough times, he will drown in there. Again, really not a good way to go. We exit this messed up neighborhood and learn that human labor is the backbone of liberty and profit. We cannot allow the vanity of self-preservation to threaten production. It's time to get out the vote, and we can see that the local community have convened at a local high school to place their vote. Inside, we even have a sly nod towards potential future prime asset Whitehorn. The vote for the 2 candidates at the school are close, with the victor needing 100 votes to win. It's between liberty and freedom, and well, Murkoff is Team Liberty, so we'll need to get out there and campaign for our candidate. We take our campaigning mannequin out there to go door knocking in the local neighborhood. Inside are citizens, but in order to help them actually reach our campaigner, we need to solve ourselves some more puzzles. Once done, they will head out and hear our pitch and give us their vote. Hell yeah. Democracy. Once we've finished our campaign, we will return our 3 votes and give our candidate the win before heading to the exit, since I think Franco was more of a freedom fan. We leave knowing that the illusion of choice is the pretext that makes obedience feel like liberty. We must do our part for the dream of democracy. Only 2 lessons to learn for us here in the Suburbs program. As we move on to our final lesson, if you've gotten this far, I'm proud of you. The Murkoff failure rate is pretty extreme, so all of you are in the minority. We head to the shopping mall for Kill the Politician, as we now enter the hunting grounds of the Crest Twins. Again, Murkoff created an entire shopping mall for this immersive experience. They deserve a raise. Throughout the mall, different stores will have small power cells that power the store. We will need to retrieve these cells and place them at different locations, such as gates or other stores, to complete objectives. We will use these to gain access to the main plaza, where we will see our politician. We will need our ticket of admission, and to get it, we will need to take a quick little detour to the department store. This will require 3 power cells, but we do get entry. Now, the goal here is to win a ticket, and in order to do that, we must secure $40 worth of goods from boxes scattered around the store. Each box is worth a different amount of money, and you can check the cost of these things at these machines. All of this is happening while the Crest twins attempt to test their new poison and chainsaw out on your face. So let's just call it a very quick shopping trip. Once the $40 worth of goods have been secured, we get our ticket and head back to our politician friend. We will now need to fill up the fountain for added effect. To do this, we will need to adjust the water pressure in different parts of the mall. It's essentially a quick maths test as you attempt to correctly add up to a particular number. Once completed, the fountain is now filled up, but not with water. Instead, it's actually with acid. It's our job to use these fun little water guns and shoot them at the politician. Ooh, that's gotta burn. Once he dies, we can exit the trial, now understanding that at the intersection of commerce and politics stands an unholy union meant to lull you into a false sense of security and control. And currently, that is the only lesson to learn here in the shopping mall program. Congratulations! You have graduated at the School of Murkoff and have come to the end of your tour bus from hell. If you enjoyed this poor excuse for a curriculum, remember to leave a like on this video, as it helps us out on the channel a bunch, and subscribe for more content in the future. The next video on the list will be a continuation of the timeline which I've been working on alongside this video here, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks again for the support, guys, it means a bunch. Until next time, peace.